Good evening. Good evening. If you recall your decision to join Toastmasters, what led you to join a Toastmasters club and how have you progressed? If you reflect back on it, what would be the words that would come to your mind? Why did you join Toastmasters? Communication skills, right? Build confidence. Public speaking. But that could be something that any other platform can also provide. But why Toastmasters?
For good connection.
For good connection. That is also something that other networks can provide.
Instant feedback.
Instant feedback is one.
And no one judges when you do mistakes.
No one judges when you do mistakes, right? Supportive environment. I would rate that fairly high, right?
Positive learning experience.
Positive learning experience. You're getting there, getting there. The reason why Toastmasters is so popular and those who stay is purely for the first line, that you have a supportive and a positive learning experience. Now, why am I saying this? Is because any role that you take, whether it is a featured speeches role, an evaluator role, a direct evaluation, or an indirect evaluation as we call it, the way you take your role needs to be such that you are supporting the person that you are evaluating or giving feedback to. That learning environment has to be there. Now, as soon as we take a step back and put on the hat or a cap of being an evaluator, whether direct or indirect, what we tend to do is to have a critical eye on what is happening around us and on the speakers that they are speaking. And we tend to be a little more critical, and that leads to criticism. Now, indirect evaluation, tag team as it is commonly called nowadays. Now, when you take up that role, one of the first things that you need to do is to ensure that whatever thought processes that comes to your mind, you take note on and then you say, you have to remain supportive of the person that you are evaluating. You should not forget that. That is very, very important. Now, what has happened over the years is that people tend to learn how to take up roles, and then you tend to keep them in silos. And maybe we are to blame because in the beginning, when we had to teach, I'll use the word teach, others to take up role, we said, okay, this is how you have to do it. Right? Why? We distilled the information and knowledge that we had, and we said, okay, this is the way to do it. But now what has happened over the years is that has become sort of a diktat. That has become sort of a mantra that people tend to follow. Now, as Toastmasters, if you feel that the role taking has been done in a way in which it is not supporting the speaker, then no matter who says it, you should not do it. Because the first objective is to have a learning experience. Now, why am I saying this? Is because now everywhere we go, you get a register like you have, and then you have silos, and you have a format on how you take down the notes. That was important because that was how you learn. But where is your creativity? Where is your learning reflected in the notes that you make? What we tend to do is to flip back the few pages and see how others have done it, and then you do it, right? Then where is your learning then? Are you really learning? Or are you only replicating what others are doing? That, my friends, needs to stay right at the top as an objective of learning. If it is good, adopt it. If you feel it does not fit into the environment that you are making, then you might want to adjust and change. Because there is no fixed rule in Toastmasters as to how you want to do it. The key is that whatever you do, it should be supportive. It should have an element of encouragement in what you want to do. So that fundamental thing or an activity is something that we should not forget. 3 things we do as a role taker. 1, we should actively listen. Now, do we do that or not is something that we need to ask ourselves. Because if we are taking a role of a grammarian or a timer or an hour counter, are we doing justice to the role by listening actively? So that is the first thing that you do. The second is taking notes, obviously. Right? And the third thing is to provide feedback when called upon. And you have only 2 minutes to do that. Do you stick to the time when you do your evaluation as well? So that, in a nutshell, is what the role demands. Now, why did I start with this is because what I've seen a practice in different clubs is the replication of how it is done in others has moved forward and has come to the clubs. Best practices, yes. If somebody is doing very well, you need to adopt. Right? I use the word adopt, but not copy. Please do not do Control-C and Control-V. Right? What is required for your club is something that you need to understand and do. For example, no matter how you take up your notes, as an evaluator, indirect, because we are limiting to the tag team here, you take down notes in whatever format that you want. But when you are providing feedback, you need to be careful. Why? If there is a new member who has come in, right, and he or she is speaking for the first time, maybe as a guest during table topics, now you need to be kind to the person. No? The objective is to encourage the person. As a guest, because you are not in sync with what Toastmasters do, you might have a lot of hesitation. Now, do you want to really call out and say that so-and-so had 35 hours and 29 repetitions and 53 pauses? Possibly you don't want to do that. You might want to refrain from doing that. As a newcomer who is here, as a tag team member, it is your responsibility to ensure that you give positive encouragement to the individual. Vis-a-vis somebody who has been in the club for, say, 2 years. And if that person has progressed, you need to be a little more critical in your feedback, a little more harsher in your feedback. Why? Because that person has been there, attended multiple meetings, have done maybe level 4, level 5, and accordingly, you provide your feedback. And that is something I have not seen in clubs, and therefore I made it a point to say this. Again, it's up to, the ethos of the club. Every club has their own way of doing so. So it's something that the executive committee can decide, saying that, okay, this is how we want to run. That is something that is, I feel, is very important. What we want to take out from members is one big 4-letter word. What could be that?
Grow.
Take out.
Grow. Grow, man, grow.
You don't want to take out growth, I think. Huh?
Fear.
Fear. You want to take out that fear in that person, right? So, when you are subjected to multiple scrutiny, new members or guests might be discouraged without you knowing it. So be kind to those individuals. even maybe for the first level, or for some who still have to grapple with confidence, maybe at the second level also. Right? Taking up a role is not just about noting and regurgitating whatever you have noted down, but to have that nuance of being able to provide that feedback. And after the meeting, you can go back to the person and say that, look, this is what it is, maybe you might want to focus on this, but not to an audience. Does that sink in? Does it make sense? Yeah? Is that something that you possibly could reflect on, and maybe in upcoming meetings you might have a different way of providing feedback? Because sometimes the accounters, the grammarian, and the timers are generally roles taken up by newer members learning the ropes of Toastmasters. And they are there to prove that I am doing a very good job. And they go at the micro level of noting down each point because they want to show that they are doing a good job. But that might act detrimental to the person who's being provided feedback on. So as a club, as an executive committee, it is important that when new members or newer members take up these roles, they are guided, they are suggested that according to the level which you see on speakers, you might want to calibrate your responses accordingly. What you want to do is to encourage members, encourage guests. And sometimes you might want to kind of ignore and say that you did a good job. Because if you become too critical, the guest may not return. Or the member might refrain from speaking. I felt this part is something that is never discussed in Toastmasters Club. I felt it important to bring it up and share. Different clubs, different individuals might come up with different thought processes, and they are right in their own. What I always believe in is that how a club environment works. When I came in, I saw everybody interacting, laughing, exchanging innuendos, and that's the environment that you want to look at because you feel comfortable, because you feel safe in this environment. And then suddenly, the evaluation becomes critical, then the off-balance could happen. Right? So let's move into individual roles. Okay? Accounting. If you talk to any non-Toastmaster, you're going to say that, hey, why don't you come to Toastmasters Club? Hey, तिमीहरुकोमा त्यो accounting गर्छ डर लाग्छ यार म आउँदिन. A positive aspect of Toastmasters is being perceived as a negative thing by potential Toastmasters, if I may put it that way. And that is wrong. No? Like we say during table topics, this is the most difficult segment. Like when you say this is the most difficult segment, you are making it difficult for the guests to raise their hands. Why say this is the most difficult segment? You are in the business of learning communication skills, and you are making your life that much difficult by saying, now this is the most difficult segment of Toastmasters. Similarly, when you are taking up accounting role, what do we note? What do we look at? We are looking, as an accounter, we are looking at anything that breaks the pattern of speaking, which inhibits the flow of information and communication. That's it. It can be an it can be an it can be repetition, it can be a filler word, a crutch word, anything. But every time you do not need to make 5 columns and intend to listen and tick off. No, that is not correct. That's why I'm saying, so certain good practices have been borrowed, but why it is being done, we have forgotten, right? And the A counter also is saying that, la, yele to aane gare na yaar. That is not the objective. The objective is supporting environment. If somebody is speaking and saying certain crutch words or filler words, but the audience does not really notice and it doesn't break the flow, why count it? Why make A the most difficult thing in a Toastmasters meeting? What we are trying to do in that role, as I said, is to see if the speaker is speaking in a way in which, if that person had not stuck up on a point or not stuck up on a sentence, by saying something, if it breaks that flow, yes, then you note it. But not anything and everything that you think is there. No. I have seen speakers who uses filler words and they are brilliant. I have used a pause right now. But this is a positive pause, no? So if he starts noting how many pauses I make, then that is wrong. Because pause is very, very powerful element of a communication. You need to use pause. You must know how to use a pause. Yes, if there is a pause, which is very uncomfortable, then you note. Sometimes you forget. Then you use an ah or If it breaks the flow, note it. If it doesn't break the flow, forget it. Did I make your life difficult? Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because I was invited to do this. It's a very simple role. But every role has its own worth of weight in gold. Otherwise, Toastmasters platform would not have these roles. It is important to understand that you have filler words. It is important to understand that you are repeating certain words or sentences which inhibits your flow of thoughts and ideas. That is important to note. But otherwise, who cares? And then we are hell-bent upon proving that I've done a very good job. This is not just to you, to everyone, right? I feel we need to be a little more kind, have a little more empathy, because that's what Toastmasters is all about. Because we want to have a safe understanding, a safe environment where we help each other to learn and take it forward. That is the key. And when you give your report, as I said earlier, make sure that you only mention certain things that is important. Right? Other things, the first meeting I went to, I famously said, where as a guest, when I attended in 2004, a long time ago, I made 17 hesitation, it was noted. In a 2-minute speech, I didn't think I spoke for 2 minutes, it was 1 minute 35 seconds or something like that. But as an individual, because I wanted to learn, I took that feedback positively, that 17 hesitations. Everybody may not be able to take that, because it depends on individual to individual. So, sometimes you may not know the reason why members do not come in. It can be as a simple activity as a person being given too critical a feedback as to how many hours they have. You might lose membership there. Okay? And that goes for timer and the grammarian also, not just right? So on the grammarian side, for me, English is my third language. I was born into a Newari family. I was taught Newari first, then Nepali, then English. My daughter studies in A-level second year. When I write something, when I speak, she says that, Baba, you're a Toastmaster, I will not even give you 4 out of 10. My English is not good. In the standards in which today's youths have been able to learn the language better. Right? But I really don't care. Because if I'm able to communicate properly and people understand, that is good enough. And when I speak English, depending on the audience, I use Nepali words also, because I may not know an English word. Right? But then what we focus on is the ideal English language. That is not required. And that prevents a lot of individuals from joining a club. Why? They feel that this is a English first language. Yes, it is, because everything, all the materials are there. But communication skill, irrespective of the language, is the skills that you learn. If this club propagates that you really don't need to be fluent in English to come here, you'll see more members coming in regularly. Because some members might have that inhibition of not being able to construct a sentence properly. But that should not matter. Because the initial learning is to build confidence. And that confidence comes when all the members say that, don't worry. Communication skills is important, not the language. We are not here to learn English as a language. We are here to learn communication skills. So what if some sentences are wrong? And that's why the grammarian is there, no? Where they will note on the good uses of grammar and not so good uses of grammar. And many times people feel that I'm not good in English, so I cannot be a grammarian. But no, it is to, you have an opportunity to listen to everyone and to see whether what you feel is correct or not, is it coming through or not. And whether you are actively listening to ensure whether there are some good words like luminous being used. Where you can embed these words in your sentences. So good use, where you felt it was improperly used, if some phrases stand out, some anecdotes, some similes, some metaphors being used, or alliterations and all, you note that because you are actively listening. Why? If that has an impact on the audience, others can also learn to inbuild those alliterations or metaphors into it. It beautifies your communication ability. But the best communication technique is to speak in simple words. Nowadays you have ChatGPT. When you're writing a speech, one of the things that I do is that please write a paragraph where even class 8 student can understand properly. Why? Because if you are going into an intellectual audience, your construct of your speech will be different. But 80% of the time, you are talking to general individual like yourself. Why do you need to use bombastic words just to prove that you have good grammar? So as a grammarian, you note, like the counter, good use, where things can be improved. And one thing that I can suggest to clubs is, as a grammarian also, if you want to learn, or as members, look at one part of grammar in one meeting. Maybe use of prepositions. Maybe use of singular and plural words. Many times I've noticed, good morning Toastmasters. Yeah? So that may not be the right way. Yeah? It's Toastmaster because singular. Yeah? Simple things, if you notice and work, that would be very, very useful. And we need to get the fear out of our head, out of the head of the members, that you need to be good in your English. Not required. Correct? Does that sink in? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So we'll come to the third rule. Timer. So timer's role, initially it was about alerting the speaker how much time has been consumed, right? And how Toastmaster Vaishali, if I got her name correct, use it is very correct. In some places I've seen green card, distracting. Because what you feel is that as a timer, the speaker has not made eye contact, right? And then you go, hello? No. So it is a subtle signal, because as Toastmasters or those who are guests, they should be alerted that this is how the timer works. And you just keep it so that there's no distraction. Because if you remember the first time you came in as a Toastmaster, one of the biggest distraction was this timer card. 80% of the time, when guests speak for the first time, if they have no knowledge of Toastmasters, if they see the green flag, they get stuck. Then the ideas go out of the head. Right? So the timer's role is not to distract the speaker at all, as much as possible. Show it subtly, because as Toastmasters, you should be aware of the timing so that it is there. Right? Don't get up, jump up. All that should be discouraged. What do you do about noting it down? Right? Again, the timing card, the way you show it is different when they are speech contest. Okay, I'm talking about a general club meeting. Do you know the difference when what happens during a speech contest? Yes. What does the timer do? Yeah? So you hold it, you do not put it, right? Yeah. So the subtle difference, but needs to be clear. Here we are talking about how a normal meeting goes on. So initially, we used to note the table topic speakers, the featured speakers, and the evaluators. Right? So as we moved along, we realized that as Toastmasters, we were starting the meeting on time, but never ending the meeting on time. So one of the subtle changes, variations that we brought to the register was that you note down the timing of each segment. Now what has happened over time is, it has gone beyond each segment and every speaker is being noted. Personally, I feel that is not required. Why? Because you are noting down so much of time, and even when you are giving the report, it will not finish in 2 minutes. So what segments do we have in a meeting? If you look at the agenda sheet, if I can borrow one. So you have a clear sergeant at arms, right? And then you have the presiding officer coming in. You have a specific time there. After that, Toastmaster introduces the theme of the meeting. You have that segment, right? You do not have to note down the length of each of the technical speakers. Not required. Only that segment is there. If you look at it, it's 5:40 and you need to finish that before 5:50. So what you need to note is whether that person who is responsible for that segment takes up that 10 minutes or not. Not micro segments. If you have the ability, do it, no problem. Right? Because then you can say that out of those 4 speakers, who took more time and less time. But in your report, not required. Because it is about managing the segment. Then if you once the featured speakers come in, that segment is important. Obviously, you'll take note of the individual speakers, that's different. But the segment needs to be taken up. Right? Similarly, if there is an educational speech, then you have the table topic segment, and then you have the evaluation segment, and then you have the general evaluation segment. All that time is counted, no, into 90 minutes. Now, what I've also seen is, as the Toastmaster of the day, afternoon, or evening, we tend to squeeze everything in 90 minutes. Sometimes it is not possible. It is okay to extend by 10 minutes and letting everybody know that it is extended at 10 minutes. Because sometimes you have guests coming in, sometimes something is happening, right? But if you want to finish by 7:30 or here 7:15, then you should target to finish by 7:15. The key is to ensure that the meeting starts and ends on time. And that's what the timer should be noticing. Does that make sense? Yeah? And when you are presenting your report, it's an interesting format where 18 individuals speak in a meeting, if you do it properly. Right? Even as a timer, it is just not about giving a report. As a counter, it is not just about giving a report. As a grammarian, it's just not about giving a report. There also see whether you can have an opening, a body, and a conclusion. A mini speech of 2 minutes. If that can be encouraged, then every speaking opportunity, you see that you take it properly. Right? It should not be that as an counter, so-and-so started with this, so-and-so started with that. Can you start with something interesting, nice? It can be immediately then and there, syncing with the theme of the meeting or the word of the day. Okay? But make sure that it is a proper presentation and not something that you swiggle in your seat and give. If you can do that, that will be awesome. Indirect evaluation counts a lot towards helping a speaker improve, helping a member become better. And please do not forget the initial objective of supporting the member and encouraging the member to become better. May you become better. Over to you.